When we talk about longevity, though, when we create this environment where these innovations can come to life much sooner and even just be done, because as I said, like some things are just blocked because there's no incentive. It's just too expensive and you don't make enough money on the market. Then, so if you create that value of billions of people being rejuvenated, it's you don't have to spend so much on elderly care, Medicare, which is, we lose I think about 15% of GDP on this, and so you earn all of that back. Then you also have these people now being more productive, being able to actually bring their wisdom that's compounding over time, right? Imagine Einstein still being alive, and von Neumann, and so on. So I see an age of hyperabundance being brought from this, right? And then what's the value of these therapies? Well, a lot of this value that's created is from these therapies. So I think a lot of that is going to flow. So if you capture some upside from that, that is amazing as well. It's many trillions and even the quadrillion level eventually. So yeah, it's just unlike anything I've ever seen on that side.
Laurence Ion, welcome to Levity.
Pleasure to be here.
I did the American pronunciation of your name.
Yeah, Ion.
Are you from Romania?
Yes. So technically in Romanian it's Ion, but yeah, and Laurence is the English version, right, of Laurentiu.
It's my name is impossible to say in English, so my surname Otjö, but Ion is perfect.
Ion is fantastic. I mean,
yeah. Has that biology, chemistry touch. Also
nominative determinism, right? Of course, I'm interested in science.
Of course. Okay. Laurence, you've gone from being a programmer to building longevity cities, and you're also heavily involved in what is called DeSci, decentralized science. And I think we're going to discuss all of this in great detail today, but maybe you could just give us some context, how you ended up where you are today.
Yeah. Maybe the story will make sense, right? When you consider that I was born with a genetic disease and I spent a lot of time in hospitals, had many surgeries across my childhood, considered whether I would wake up from surgeries, right? Like the problem of death and just health in general. I know what it's like to feel frail, to have all these pains and suffering. And I think most young people are kind of thinking they're invincible, right? They don't think about the degeneration that will come with time. And so I was thinking a lot about, I hope it's not going to be worse, right? And then kind of put it out of my mind for a while, as I had a period where I didn't really have any surgeries for like a decade or so. And then I started having health issues again. So this came back to me. But meanwhile, I was mostly interested in tech. I was thinking a lot about the future. I was very techno-optimist and thinking if everything is going to be super amazing, everything is going to get solved, including my disease. I wasn't necessarily thinking that I would do something about it. Well, initially I didn't want to become a doctor, a surgeon, but obviously I couldn't operate on myself, and it was just more of a fascinating thing to me. Biology was fascinating.
Would you like to share what genetic disease it is? And it sounds like it affected you in childhood, and then you were free from it for a while, and then you came back.
There's these bone tumors. I have dozens of bone tumors that are benign, but some of them are problematic, and they could become malignant and become cancerous. So it is a bit scary, but growing up is when they mostly grew. in adulthood, they grow very slowly or not at all. It's not very clear. There's not much research. It's very rare. It's called multiple hereditary exostoses. So I think that's probably why I was so interested in biology and wanting to become a doctor, because I spent a lot of time with doctors and I respected them, and I thought that's the best way to have an impact on the world as well. But it wasn't fit for me. I was very, I don't know, I couldn't talk to people. I couldn't be like a clinician, right? I was more like going deep into the subjects, understanding how the human body works, and math and science in general. Because of math and because of my passion for computers and video games and so on, I went more into that computer science stuff. And initially just kind of building. Then I was like, okay, I need to actually learn how to talk to people, to understand what people want. So I became more of a tech entrepreneur, to build things that people actually find value in, rather than just tech for the sake of tech. And then I started at some point having health issues again. So I took time to self-experiment and solved some of my issues, and then basically was in a sabbatical. I was just investing, and more I started thinking about these issues and how it might become worse over time. There's this problem of aging. I love life. I love existence. I wouldn't want it to end. And so why am I doing anything else other than working on making sure that we will be healthier, live longer? Worst case, I can have some impact and improve biotech, just maybe bring forth the time where we have that longevity escape velocity. Even by one day means 110,000 lives saved, right? So it just seemed like the most impactful thing. And it's also minimizing regret. Like if I will be on my deathbed, I would regret not trying my best to do something about this, right? And if I tried my best, it is what it is. Yeah.
Those health issues, were they related to your genetic disease?
It's hard to tell, right? Like I have all these joint pains. For example, I couldn't walk much because of my ankle, but through self-experimentation, through learning a lot about science and applying the scientific method as best as I can on n equals 1, trying to minimize my biases and find holes in hypotheses and so on. I did a bunch of things, and it's hard to tell if it worked or it was like a coincidence, right? Because it's n equals 1. But now I can run, and yeah.
I guess also because your condition was so rare, you probably also discovered that the world of people who are working on that might not be as big as you might expect. That wow, perhaps one has to engage oneself.
Honestly, I was actually the opposite, surprised that anyone is working on this.
Okay.
So I was surprised that there's a conference with people with my disease, and I went to one and I met others. I was like, whoa, this is so cool. We're a community. We had Facebook groups, but I didn't know initially. And well, the problem is the pharma company that was working on something like this was just repurposing a compound and stopped working on it, and wouldn't have helped me anyway. It was to slow down the progression or prevent a little bit of these tumors forming. But when you have them, it's too late anyway. As in that paradigm of thinking. Of course, now I know that we can potentially reverse these things. As we get better at biology, we can do anything we want with our bodies eventually, right? So
what I was thinking when you said this is that you kind of got the sense of growing old really fast. Like this is the
frailty.
The thing. Yeah, this is the frailty that is going to affect all of us. But when you get that disease, when you are in your 70s or 80s, then it's expected. It's something that should happen, right? But if all of us were getting those kinds of diseases in early age, we would think it would be completely terrible, right? It's just so interesting to see that. I'm not saying that everyone should get a genetic disease, but maybe they should have the profound realization what that actually means to grow old and to age.
Yeah, I had a dream once. It was like more like in a movie kind of thing. It wasn't in my head. It wasn't like real or something. But maybe there are obviously movies where someone introduces some virus and something happens, but yeah, like there was a movie where people would kind of get a taste of what it's like to be old. Uh, I don't think this is a real movie. But yeah, like it was like a temporary thing, right? But then everyone was like, well, it wasn't like necessarily old, but people felt health issues, and it was kind of a pandemic thing. I don't know. Some people died, but not. It wasn't like a big. Yeah, I don't know. It was very scary. Um, and honestly, with COVID as well, I thought, well, before COVID, I was quite worried about engineered pandemics and bio, how this could be an existential risk for humanity. And when I saw COVID come, I thought, oh, okay, we're gonna actually be more prepared for something more serious if it comes, right? Like we're gonna have a global immune system, try to detect these things and all that stuff. And there's a little bit of that, but like 1% of what I expected. Um,
Yeah.
I wanted to say that also because of that community of people with the same genetic disease, MHE, um, it also ties in perfectly with VitaDAO, decentralized science, right? Because I thought, well, if that pharma company stopped working on that trial, probably not profitable enough, not efficient, not effective enough. It takes billions of dollars to make a new drug, and there might not be enough people that pay enough, and it might be hard. It might take decades. It does take decades to bring a new drug to market, right? Anyway, um, so it kind of is lost in there in a valley of death, this research. So although there are some researchers working on this disease, there's no actual companies that are bringing forth drugs. So then I thought, well, we are the community, we're going to this conference, right? Like we could put money together, and we do have some foundations and we fund some researchers, but it's a drop in the ocean of what's needed to bring a drug to market. So this idea of, oh, we could be as a community putting money together more effectively. There's this idea of crypto, right? Where anyone can put money together, have a token, govern what happens with that money, with the DAO, right? The first decentralized autonomous organization on Ethereum, where people put that money and invested it and so on. And so we thought, okay, why don't we do that with longevity? Me and Alex Dobrin, my co-founder from before, we were working on this for a while, many years ago. And then when you, yeah, we kind of merged with VitaDAO, with Molecule was doing this framework where we can have actual IP, intellectual property rights held on the blockchain, so you can have actual value in the DAO. So that became VitaDAO.
Can we just give the listeners or viewers just a short timeline of where we are and how your journey has been here from you studied computational science, right? In
Computer
Bucharest.
science, yeah.
Computer science.
I studied it a bit, mostly self-learned. Initially biology, then math and computer science. So self-taught pretty much everything, investing and entrepreneurship generally, and getting out of my shell to be able to talk to strangers. Like that was not really possible initially. I was just like laughing or like smiling. I couldn't talk to people initially, right? So it took a long time to kind of get myself out of that shell.
What is the ambulance or that we're hearing now? Where are you?
I'm in San Francisco in a longevity house called Evitas,
Right.
and that was a fireman.
Ah. Okay, sorry, I interrupted you. So
No worries.
your journey.
Yeah. So when I was about when I was adolescent, like from like, well, I think in fourth grade I started helping my sister with like computer science homework. She's 3 years older, Madalina Bellariu Ion, who's also a part of an initiative for longevity. She's an actress, producer, so naturally she's joined another DAO called JellyfishDAO, which were funding movies, not funding biotech companies, funding movies that would show would show longevity in a positive light, because everything is, all the stories we're told or in movies and so on are dystopian, how we shouldn't attempt to find that fountain of youth or elixir of life, how it's selfish and vain and all that, right? And so I think that affects humanity a lot. It's indeed this Stockholm syndrome. Any of you in Stockholm, by the way?
I'm pretty close to Stockholm.
Anyway, yeah. So I think people, it's understandable that people accept that which they cannot change, and they come up with all these stories why we don't want it anyway, right? Because
Yeah.
we cannot get it. But hello, maybe we can get it. But anyway, so if we would make movies, art, music, all the stuff, media that would inspire people about how it can be much better in a world without aging, and that it is possible, and so on. I think that can really be at the highest level of leverage, because then we can get more people to advocate, to fund more science, to accelerate trials, and so on. Anyway, coming back to what to what I was saying before. So, like from fourth grade or something to maybe first year of college is when I was basically a programmer, and more entrepreneurial, figuring out what people want. I joined the startup probably when I was 16, 17 for a little bit as a founding member. Then I worked for a company in high school, another startup. Then I started my own company, I think end of high school, beginning of college.
What year was that?
2012, let's say, or something.
Okay.
Around then, I also started dabbling in crypto, Bitcoin, and so on, but mostly focusing on companies.
You bought Bitcoin at that point in time?
I mined. Didn't really have money, but I had a laptop.
Yeah. But do you have any Bitcoin now?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just they've been increasing in value, I've heard.
It's been a crazy ride. I don't pay too much attention to Bitcoin or the price. I am adjacent to crypto because of VitaDAO and things like that, because we have the JellyfishDAO and BeakerDAO and many of these communities, and with Viva City, which I will tell you about. Of course, we will also eventually, I'm sure, there will be a token that governs the community. It's just a better way to govern, to even vote, right? Like all the countries, I think, will vote on blockchain eventually. So I see crypto as an amazing tool to coordinate. Like money, ultimately, what is it about? It's about coordination, right? We use it as a medium of exchange, and crypto is not just making another form of money. It's a lot more complex coordination tool than just money. It's digital, it's programmable, it's interoperable, composable, and so on. And the same, like we're bringing other assets like IP, right, intellectual property, on chain, and making it liquid, making it interoperable and composable and fractional ownership, so that the community can own that. So yeah, over the years, I started coming to Silicon Valley. Like I think 2012 was the first time Google brought me, because I won an international coding competition by Google, and I started understanding what's happening here, how amazing the startup scene is. So I got better at that and kept coming here, and yeah, maybe.
And your first companies or your first company, what was it about?
First one was a social network competing with Facebook.
Okay.
That eventually also combined with crypto, using tokens as a reward mechanism for, so to kind of share the revenue of ads. But
right.
Long story. And then I also made a bunch of tools for summarizing social media, so you're not always on it and all that. And I made dating, or like an app for socializing in college, because I was like a semester I was in college, and then the rest I didn't really go, and I didn't finish, so I didn't really learn anything at college. It's more socializing and using it as a testing ground for this app where we would chat through Bluetooth, because we didn't have internet that widely available. It was expensive in Romania. So Bluetooth was cheap, and so I wanted to kind of chat with people in the classroom around me. And that became a dating app eventually, which would show you people that you crossed paths with. And then we made a bunch of tools to grow it, and we sold those tools as well to others, marketing tools. And then with crypto, it was just a way to kind of bring more of that community aspect, a better model for funding research in longevity. And then I realized even the money that we can put together is a drop in the ocean for clinical trials. And I thought, yeah, okay, we just go super early stage and then bring assets from idea to something that biotech VCs would want to invest in and spin them out as company. Then pharma might want to license that IP. Pharma might want to spin it out and do the clinical trials. But pharma doesn't, and VCs, of course, informed by pharma, doesn't really see this new paradigm of tackling aging as the root cause of all these age-related diseases. And they're moving too slow. There's also a lot of things they're blind to. Like there's things that we could repurpose, for example, rapamycin and so on, and see if it actually works in humans. That's not going to happen because you can't patent it, and it's just expensive to do a trial. The only way it works is there are some more decentralized kind of community-run funded trials. We funded a rapamycin trial with Brad Stanfield, the YouTuber doctor. And there are a bunch of efforts like that where it's just no profit motive, right? It's just people coming together trying to see if this thing works. So at some point, one of our assets from VitaDAO became ready for clinical trials, could go into humans. So that is very expensive. It takes a very long time through the regulatory process. You usually kind of need pharma, but that specific asset might not make billions, so it's not actually worth it to spend those billions on it. But it doesn't have to cost that much. If we as a community would have a way to do a decentralized clinical trial, we could know rigorously whether it works or not with much less money. So I started thinking a lot more about the physical aspect. Like initially it was online community, we're funding all this research all over the world. But then that's in the world of the world of bits mostly we were operating. And so I started thinking more about the world of atoms and how things are slow and bureaucratic, and how it would be amazing to have this island, for example, where we could have a territory for the DAO that we govern.
So you got involved in decentralized science before there was any talk of longevity cities. Is that correct?
Yeah. I was passionate about these ideas. Balaji Srinivasan, I think 2012 or 13, probably 2013, gave a talk at startup school. I was there. I made the after party there, or around that time.
But Laurence, you won a coding competition and hosted by Google, right?
Yes.
But
the Google...
is that how? And did you then go to California?
Yeah, they brought me here for a bit.
Yeah. So, and that was the first time you've been.
Yes, that was the first time I went outside of Romania. I had never traveled. When I was 17.
I mean, that's quite an exciting adventure too. I mean, so you've been operating outside that world, and then you're inside that world, and that must have been incredibly exciting.
Yeah. I went back to Romania, and I did everything I could to come back here. Found friends to crash on their couches and all that. Yeah.
This episode of Levity is brought to you by Vitalism Foundation. It's a community of action driven by vitalism, a new moral philosophy whose first tenet is that life and health are good, death is humanity's core problem, and aging its primary agent. They're one of the few groups that truly understand aging as the emergency that it is.
Vitalism's goal is nothing short of monumental: to allocate 1% of global GDP to this project. It's ambitious, but it's exactly what's needed to tackle aging head-on.
As a member of Vitalism, you'll get access to a private community, exclusive content, and invites to special conferences. Plus, you'll receive insider prices on longevity wellness services from Vitalism's mission-aligned partners.
But more than that, you will be supporting a mission that's too important to leave to others to tackle.
You should really join us. Follow the link in the description below. For a limited time, you get 30% off forever. Just use the promo code LEVITY at checkout.
Again, that's 30% off forever with the promo code LEVITY. Let's make a difference together.
Crypto had started to become popular at that point in time, right? But decentralized science, should we maybe spend some time on decentralized science and talk about when did that originate and what is decentralized science? You have talked a little bit about it now, but maybe we could give some more background to people who are not so familiar with the topic.
It has its roots in the open science movement. I don't know when the idea was first formulated. It's a simple idea of just doing science in a more decentralized way without permission from centralized institutions, authorities. It means permissionless funding, execution, and publishing of research. Those are kind of the three areas for it. The funding aspect was the first, or the VitaDAO being the first decentralized community to fund real-world research through crypto.
And DAO is a decentralized autonomous organization, right?
Yeah. It's a long name. It's imagine a Reddit with a bank account, right, where we can decide together hey, hello, VitaDAO, t-shirt. I love it. Yeah. So Molecule is a company started by Paul Kohlhaas and Tyler Golado. They were working on this framework to bring IP on chain. They're making a marketplace, thinking, okay, scientists could put their ideas and communities could fund them. And it's hard to make a marketplace. You need to bring in both the supply and the demand, the money and the scientists. And it was broad, just general IP in biology, biotech. And then Alex and I were working separately on a longevity DAO with a different approach. So we kind of joined forces. There were 7 stewards.
Alex Dobrin? Or?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. He's been my business partner and best friend for more than a decade. So there were the people from Molecule, there was Alex and I, there were a few other independent stewards, and we all pushed together to make this a reality as a community that raised money through an auction, super fair. Anyone could bid money, including ourselves. Like we didn't have any kind of power or tokens, or didn't pay ourselves anything, right? Like it was just, here's the thing, someone in the community, like we just created a community, right? And then accelerated it, and then someone created a token, so anyone could buy it, and then there was a vote to give us some authority to have budget to do various things, and we created the structure under that. And now it's evolved a lot where there's these pods that work more like companies that do services for the DAO, and it's a lot more efficient than you would imagine a Reddit with a bank account, right? It's not as much debate. It's a lot of delegation. People say, okay, that's a pool of money. We delegate that we want them to do this thing with these metrics. So you can hire a bunch of companies to do various things in the real world, including signing contracts for IP, including spinning out companies, and so on.
There are several DAOs now,
A lot.
just for longevity, right? So there's
Yeah.
VitaDAO. You mentioned Jellyfish. There is Hydra.
CryoDAO for cryonics.
Yeah.
Yeah, the new one, HydraDAO, very cool for replacement. Amazing.
And these are they connected in any way? Other than that, I guess there are many of the same people in some sort of capacity involved in them. Do they
Yeah.
help each other out in any way, or are they completely separate?
Yeah, we are friends. There's overlap in some of the teams as well, or at least advising. I've been advising on most of these, and some of them basically spun out of VitaDAO. Initially, it was like a group chat, the channel. We wanted to see if we can allocate some funding to that specific niche, and it made a lot more sense for it to be its own DAO, like cryo, like reproductive longevity or women's health. That's Athena DAO. Very, very good. Yeah, that's it's a very collaborative environment for sure.
Do you feel like you have seen progress in the way that the DAO can work? That
Oh yeah.
we actually, yeah. Can you mention some of the like tangible things that that people can get a taste for? Yeah, this could be the way to go forward here to actually accelerate.
I mean, it's such an important key that anyone can contribute capital and anyone can contribute their skills in a more open format in a community. They can propose ideas. Now, of course, with companies, you can also be a shareholder and propose things for vote, but it's not as flexible. It's a quite strict governance structure. The board has a lot of power. The CEO has a lot of power in a regular company. This is more decentralized, more democratic, but also to get around the problems where you might think, okay, it might be inefficient and a lot of debate. We do compartmentalize things. There are companies that do things right for the DAO, and it's just that the people, the community acts more as a check on power, and we don't debate on every specific way we do something. Imagine a municipality wants to build a bridge, right? It's not like the citizens vote on where each nail goes or whatever, right? They kind of vote, some representatives delegate some authority, and then those people select the best companies, ideally, to build that bridge. And then the companies run more authoritarian, right? Like, it's okay, this is not a debate, it's experts say where each nail goes and so on.
And what are some of the projects that VitaDAO has initiated?
We funded a lot of research at various universities, dozens of projects. For example, with Morten Schabay-Knudsen at Copenhagen University, close to you, one of the top researchers. With Newcastle University, with the University of Washington in the US, University of Oslo as well, actually. Yeah, and some of these projects advanced to become its own company, to spin out, or also it's their own kind of mini DAOs, sub-DAOs, so communities which have their own token, which govern that specific project. So with the Vita token, anyone can buy it, contributing capital, or do things and earn it, and then have a voting governance power. So one token gives you one vote on what VitaDAO does. So you kind of govern the whole portfolio, and then you can also go specifically with VitaFast, let's say, which is the one at Newcastle with Victor Korolchuk, which is about similar to the mechanism with fasting, this autophagy mechanism, where we found molecules that are very effective at enhancing that autophagy. So VitaFast governs that specific project. It's cool because we funded it with a few hundred K, 285K, I think. And then now it's its own token, which sold 10% of it to the initial community forming there to raise, I think, a similar amount of money, around 285 or 300K on top of that, just by basically diluting 10%. And then, it's been able to kind of issue more tokens and fund itself without using money from VitaDAO. And it's kind of like its own thing, and it's millions of dollars worth of tokens that are liquid.
Do you see that people are investing and hoping to make some return, or are there more philanthropic idea to actually have a chance to invest in something that wouldn't get funding in the traditional way?
Yeah, with crypto, it's really different and interesting. Of course, there will always, when you have something that's tradable, even like trading cards, baseball cards, like people will speculate, but there's something more to it, right? Like there's some passion into it. So this gives you actual value of governance, but not financial. There's no promise of financial returns. There's regulations around securities and so on, right? So we're very careful in how we position these things. Traditionally, like if it was a traditional company, it would be a security, and only a very few people could invest. That only accredited investors, right? It's very regulated, and it's there's gatekeeping. So similar like gatekeeping in science with institutions, you need the PhD and so on to access those facilities. You can't be like a kid in a garage with an idea. Usually, except with decentralized science, you can use just your laptop. You can get funding. You can send an experiment to be executed. You can publish through these mechanisms, even though normal journals would be like, who are you? Like, what are your credentials, right? Some kid. Well, with decentralized science, like, doesn't matter. The idea matters. The execution matters. The impact ultimately. And if you have people that care about this and want to put money towards it, great, right? There's nothing stopping you. I lost the train of thought. Where did we?
Yeah, we all do.
Aging.
Yeah.
But
we're all aging.
What would be the kind of motivation of let's say if we imagine someone who wants to get into investing and helping you in VitaDAO and get a token or some tokens, etc. How would that actually happen? Let's say a listener here says, okay, this sounds great. I want to help progress anti-aging science in one way or another. I want to get this token. Well, how would they go about doing that?
So they can go to vitadao.com, and on there's an explanation. You can join the community. You can see how to buy the token. You can see about VitaFast, which is that specific token. Another one, Vita RNA, which is a super exciting project as well with RNA medicines, which are hot right now, right?
So let's say VitaFast. That sounds great. So how much do I contribute to get the token?
All that you have.
You don't even need to
everything.
get one. You don't even need to get one token. Like you can put any amount of money and you get a fraction of a token. I don't know how much a token is right now. I don't really watch the prices.
Like roughly?
I know Vita token is around $1.80 or something.
Okay.
But usually this doesn't really matter because you could have 10 times as many tokens at 10 times less price, right? Or whatever. Like, but VitaDAO has a max supply, 64,200,000 something, which is the estimated number of minutes that the longest lived person lived. So one token is 1 minute of life, kind of thing.
I actually do feel like it's still a little bit difficult for regular people who are not very interested in crypto, who might be interested in contributing to science, to actually understand how you get a crypto wallet and how you buy a crypto coin and so on. I feel like it has been like it's 2025 now, and I go to Coinbase or whatever, and I feel like it's still a little bit of a hurdle to actually do these kinds of things, right?
It will get easier and easier.
I mean, I'm a technology reporter, and I still feel it's a little bit difficult.
Yeah, there are barriers. It will get easier and easier, especially now. I feel like the environment is a lot better. There's a huge wave of innovation coming. Yeah, there's a guide, right? Like if you go on the website, there's a button, get Vita, and it guides you through the steps. It's not that hard, but
okay.
there's the Discord. Actually, if you click get Vita, it gets you directly to the exchange where a decentralized exchange where it might be a bit harder to go there. But if you go to the Vita token, there is more of a description and guide on how to get a wallet and buy Ethereum and then swap it to Vita.
How many projects have you funded in VitaDAO, and how much money have you contributed?
It's been a few dozen projects, 20 something, and over 6 million deployed from VitaDAO. But again, each project, like VitaFast and VitaRNA and so on, have their own token as well, so they can fundraise on their own. And there's a lot more experiments we're doing right now. We're doing an AI agent called Aubrey, which is like an AI version of Aubrey, funding his research with the combinations in mice, RMR, robust mouse rejuvenation 2. So yeah, we're doing all kinds of cool experiments.
What do you mean by agent? What is the agent going to do here?
So the agent talks to people about longevity research.
Okay. So it is like
things can have a wallet. It can interact, and over time, it will be able to do more and more things as there's more APIs, as the AI can sort of integrate with more real world things. You can eventually have its own trading and sort of fundraise and fund science as it decides, as people talk to it and try to maybe influence it and what science gets funded. Yeah, there's limitless possibilities, right? We can't even imagine what's going to happen with it.
Is Aubrey available to chat with right now?
It should be.
The good thing with Aubrey is that there is a lot of data to train an LLM on.
Yeah, exactly. When is the episode going to air?
It's going to air. I don't know. Maybe early April or something like that. We just said, Patrick and I, that we have so many recordings now that we maybe have to pause a little bit because they're getting farther and farther out in the future.
Yeah, that's okay.
So just to make this very concrete, let's say I get the 1000 VitaFast token, okay?
Mm-hmm.
What happens now?
Well, you can use it to vote. There will be proposals from the community. You can use it to get access to a token-gated channel on our Discord, the VitaDAO Discord, which is specifically for the VitaFast community that has the tokens. So there's more discussion. You can get involved in it as much as you want. Most people don't get as involved, right? They're busy. They just want to support that specific project, or they want to influence. Maybe they think they know. They have some unique edge, right? And there will be more and more things to do with it. With the Vita token, there are more and more things apart from access and so on. You get access to VitaDAO Global, which can help you take care of your own longevity. There are a bunch of services like longevity physicians and supplements. We're making our own unique supplements. We tried out a few months ago our first one, Vita 001, and now we have a second one coming out. We want to eventually also enable the community to do decentralized trials with these. The supplement was launched in Thailand with the Thai FDA regulator type, and it will be available as a supplement worldwide, so people can easily take it and see if we can gather data with placebo-controlled trial, basically. And then from there, hopefully, we evolve more and more. So as I was saying, with one of our early projects being ready to go into humans, that's an actual regulated medicine. So you need to go through regulators, and it's quite slow. I had been interested, as I was saying, in this idea of creating new jurisdictions. Initially, I was thinking of an island and so on, but it doesn't have to be an island. Balaji was talking about these like cloud nations. So imagine a DAO or a community online that also crowdfunds territory and has territory all over the world, and people consider themselves part of this and have a certain GDP basically with their income. They can pay taxes or have another revenue model. And so when does it become a country, right? Like that was really interesting to think about. But of course, I think that's super far-fetched for, it could be like very long in the future when other governments recognize these things as their own countries. But meanwhile, there's this idea of special jurisdictions where you can have a city or a hub, and let's say what my interest is medical hub, right? You can have a medical campus that has its own special jurisdiction where we, the residents in there, a lot of scientists, entrepreneurs, and so on, can try out a different regulatory framework that is functioning at warp speed. Right? We've seen during COVID, there's this Operation Warp Speed, and we made the society basically thought, okay, COVID is a crisis. There's this new enemy, right? This virus. We don't accept it. It's killing people. We can't wait 15 years as it usually takes for a vaccine. So there was a lot of pressure, a lot of power, lobbying that we should kind of speed things up and get all the bureaucracy out of the way, while still making sure that it's safe. And I think the safety data was quite significant, similar to safety data for other vaccines, even though they took much longer usually. In just 8 months, it was approved, right? Now, of course, safety data has to be gathered over time, and sometimes it might not it might not be as safe as thought before. But that happens with every medicine, even if it takes 15 years, even if it takes a few months. The question is, how much data do you gather? And then, of course, you shouldn't coerce people. So some people might not be comfortable. They might want to see longer-term effects. Some people might want to not see long-term effects from the virus. So people might choose vaccine versus virus. Right? The same thing with aging. We should allow some people to take things early stage, as the effects of aging are pretty well known, especially if you're old. It's a terminal disease, right? So you can't wait. Some people don't have decades to wait for new medicine. So they might want to try something earlier, and some people might want to wait longer. The point is, of course, you gather as much safety data as possible. You have a very rigorous standard, actually even more rigorous than currently, which I'm not very happy with how biology works today. Like the entire field of biology is not very scientific. I'm very passionate with towards physics and especially electricity because of my last name. I think, I don't know. But physics is such more of a pure science, like actually going through the scientific method, trying to poke holes in hypotheses and so on. And biology doesn't really happen. And pharma is better than other parts of biology, but it's still cherry picking data from multiple centers and showing to the regulators only some. It's not great. It needs to be improved. but we can also do it much faster. So having a special jurisdiction where it's faster and cheaper, instead of decades, just a few months, instead of billions of dollars, on the order of $1 million before you can go on the market. Safety prioritized, efficacy discovered over time, and of course safety over time as well, allowing people to choose when they're comfortable. The key is that you bring something to market much faster. With DeSci as well, with tokenization, you have liquidity much earlier. So look at VitaFast and VitaRNA and so on. Instead of usually taking 5 to 10 years for an investor in a biotech company regularly to have liquidity, here it's not a company, it's a community. It's all trading liquid right now. People have an incentive, right, to make the science better or to have an edge and so on, and whether this works out. Then also, if you can go to market much faster, you can bring in that revenue, you can fund more things, you can develop it better, you can create more therapies in that specific community, and so on. It's when you cut the timeline, you have the feedback loop from a scientific perspective, from a impact perspective as well, but also from a financial perspective, because you can recycle the capital. Everything can work faster. I don't think that charity is the best way. I look at novel mechanisms in which you can create that flywheel where money can make more money and create and have more impact.
There's a lot of things happening in San Francisco today. So yeah, we're starting to go into special economic zones here. I mean, special economic zones, they've been around for a while, but I guess the introduction of crypto has really added a dimension to it, right? And I feel like what's been happening in Honduras, in Prospera, is largely influenced by the emergence of crypto. It feels like, and that was also the kind of the first longevity city, so to speak, with Vitalia. Can you tell me how Vitalia came about? And I mean, we had Niklas Ansinger on the podcast a few months ago, but maybe you could do a quick recap of Vitalia.
There, of course, there's a big update.
Yeah. We'll get to that as well.
As we discontinued Vitalia and split up, and now I'm doing Viva City. So the history comes also through VitaDAO, combining forces with Vitalik Buterin in Zuzalu to kind of do the longevity aspect of it.
Right.
So Zuzalu was the first experiment of let's not just chat about things online about how we could create new cities, crypto cities, and network states and so on. Let's actually go together in physical space. We rented out a resort, which is like a mini city, brought 200 people for 2 months there, long enough that it's not just a conference, and it's 200 people, so it's 10 times more than a regular co-living space, so it feels more like a village. You have over Dunbar's numbers, so not everyone knows each other, not everyone can meet each other and so on. And then hundreds, maybe 1,000 people came in total to also visit for conferences, as we had themes in series like Synbio, longevity, AI, network states and crypto, and alternatives to network states and so on.
Patrick, you were there, right?
Yeah. I was there, and I was radicalized. I blame this camp, this two-month camp. I came there as an innocent philosopher who had been working in my study, defeating the idea that death is acceptable. Just I wrote the case against death, and that's why I was invited by Adam Grease, and I think I met Laurence the first day. By the way, you have become a good public speaker and communicator, I have to say, because you're definitely persuasive. So that's how I actually became more involved in actually doing something about not dying.
Thank you. Yeah,
This
so
was in Montenegro, we should say.
Yeah. It was
Yeah.
like a
Yes, that was 2
marina. It
years
was by
ago.
the ocean, very beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah, 2 years ago in a resort that was maybe too beautiful. Uh, it was amazing, life-changing for a lot of us because we had healthy food readily available. Like one of the restaurants there, we just basically took over, tell them this
Brian
menu.
Johnson's recipe, right?
Yes, yes.
But wait, this was 2
Mostly,
years ago? Was
yes.
Brian Johnson a thing already then?
He's
Smaller,
not a
but
thing, he's a person.
No, he's a thing.
inspired by Brian Johnson. We had differences in the menus. We also had like extra stuff, but yeah. So that was like, okay, it's hard to live healthy by yourself. You have to think about where to, like, obviously order food. It's hard. We have to cook, and where do you get the ingredients and all that stuff. It's much easier when you're a bunch of people. You basically all put money together, and then there's a chef or multiple, right? And it's so much easier. It works out. You have a restaurant that is like only healthy. Then also the fact that other people are exercising. We have like a lot of group classes and so on. It motivates you when you see others right nearby you, like in the co-working space. You see those people are doing some yoga over there or something. Then it also is inspiring to
I have
move.
to say, this is I'm so inspired by that we could build a place where you actually where the incentives are there to live healthy.
Yeah,
Like, because the society I live in, all of the incentives are there for you to live unhealthy.
there's sugar everywhere. There's unhealthy food. Of course,
Yeah.
you're gonna be tempted, and it's hard to eat healthy stuff when you're surrounded by unhealthy stuff. When the only snacks that are around you are healthy and the only food is like, of course, by default, you're gonna do that. And we are social animals. The same with going to bed on time. The same with exercising and so on. If the others are doing it, then we do it too. So there's the lifestyle aspect. We also did tracked our biomarkers and did various experiments. There's
Now,
also
I was just saying your role here wasn't you weren't just representing VitaDAO, right? You play a part in
I was a
the
co-organizer in the whole
inception and
Zuzalu.
organizing. Like how did that happen? How early did you get in on organizing this?
Well, initially, Vitalik brought us in to help with the longevity part, but I got involved
Vitalik
in everything
Buterin.
from housing. Yes, the founder of Ethereum. Um, I just had to get involved in everything. We were a small team, and it was very last minute. It was, very accelerated timeline. We just wanted to do a quick experiment, and it was a very successful experiment. We, of course, talked a lot about that part of it, creating a special jurisdiction eventually. One of our residents became prime minister of Montenegro. I mean, he was already quite popular in this new party, like very young. They understand crypto, they understand longevity. Potentially, Montenegro might be the first country to declare aging a disease, and also maybe Belize as well. Let's see who's going to be first. Yeah, it's interesting. So it could be that we create a special jurisdiction there and then go there. But obviously, I knew that that's going to take some time. So we spun out Vitalia after the Zuzalu experiment. It became a movement. So we spun out Vitalia as my approach to have a focus on longevity, use crypto and AI as tools, but there's this powerful idea, I think, about filtering around one thing that we think about differently than the rest of society. So that thing being that life is good and death is bad, that we prioritize longevity. So we came together in an existing special jurisdiction, as you mentioned, Prospera. So we did initially, let's try it out for 2 months as well. Brought a few hundred people there, and we explored how we could build a permanent Vitalia district there, and we're talking about finding other jurisdictions, potentially Montenegro, potentially other countries. We'll see. But yeah, that didn't work out for me. I decided to not work with Prospera anymore. So I'm looking for new locations, talking to various governments, including Montenegro, right, to see if we could establish something new like that. The other problem is Honduras itself, the country. declared all these jurisdictions to be unconstitutional. There's three jurisdictions. Initially, I considered potentially working with one of the other three in Honduras, but now I'm not really excited because, yeah, it seems like the Honduras government doesn't want these there, and that's fair. Okay, we'll find other places, and I think that's the best way instead of fighting and using voice, rather exit. So if you don't want the innovation we bring, the billions of dollars in foreign investment, the hundreds of thousands of jobs, and bringing a tier one hospital to this country, providing top-notch healthcare, and eventually getting these medicines at cost for your citizens, being put on the map as like the place where medical innovation happens. That's fine. Okay, we'll go somewhere else. So it's just like with any other partnership. We partner with countries, negotiate, see which gives us the best deal. Hopefully by September we will have something. There are some options already. We just don't want to go too far from our main spots, like US and Europe is where most of our community is. So yeah, that's Viva City is not only looking for a location, we're also bringing people together in person. Meanwhile, in every major city, we're creating these embassies. So you can attend either events, meetups, conferences, dinners. You can join the online group. So just viva.city is the website. You can apply to be part of the community. Join the group. Find local chapters. Right, meet up with people. Then we also help organize other gatherings, other pop-up cities. So I forgot to mention that after Vitalia, I also did a pop-up city in Berlin, Zeller City. I helped Victoria, basically, and I'm helping many of these, like Vitalist Bay coming up April and May here in Berkeley. The Frontier Tower, which is going to be a permanent 16-story tower. I'm helping a lot of there's now going to be 12 cities. Most are not yet announced. LA is going to come up, Bloom City. So my strategy is that I help create communities where they gather for a longer period, and eventually these hubs that are permanent, these embassies, spaces where you can go and experience, like at Zuzalu and Vitalia, get a taste of what it's like at a smaller scale in just a building, right? Where you have all these awesome people, you have the healthy food, exercise together, and co-working, and it's a third space. You can, in the Frontier Tower, it's 16 stories. A lot of them will be co-living. It's like a vertical village. You don't need to leave the tower if you don't want to. You have gym, you have restaurants, lounges, healthy food, all this stuff, co-working, right?
We should do that in Sweden. We should have
Definitely.
a Levity tower here in Sweden.
Yeah, I mentioned I don't want to say it now, but I mentioned to Patrick a name that we could have a good name on it
Okay. But
until we secure the domain, can't mention it.
okay.
Yeah.
Laurence, what went well with Vitalia and the other initiatives you've done around longevity cities, and what would you like to build on? What would you like to improve for Viva City?
People are very excited, so we got a lot of traction. People created companies already. So even just during a few months of Vitalia, someone already created Unlimited Bio, for example, and a bunch of other companies that already do advanced therapies in humans. So in just a few months, they got approval and started creating data. So one of the first such companies before Vitalia actually was MiniCircle, which created a gene therapy that could be impactful to aging, a follistatin gene delivered through these plasmids. They did the safety trial in just a few months and with just a few $100K, and then they started selling it. We don't yet know if it's efficacious. The efficacy data should come in over time. I hope it comes in. So we can't say if it's efficacious or not for building muscle, better bone density, potentially longevity. The follistatin shows 30% life extension in mice. They're also going to do other therapies and so on. Limited Bio is doing VEGF gene therapy, which has also really good data, but it hasn't been tried for longevity. They're going to do a lot of therapies coming up. There are other companies doing like dental stuff. There's not so much related to longevity, like Lumina prebiotic, probiotic, for curing cavities, for example, and so on.
Should say though that follistatin, the study you mentioned there with 30% lifespan extension in mice, is they had short-lived control groups, which Matt Kaberlein has criticized, for example.
Yeah, there have
Saying
been many
that
studies,
it could be it's an interesting therapy all the same. Hopefully, we'll get better data.
Yeah, that's the way of science, right? You just kind of try to gather as much evidence, and you have some evidence for it. Usually, it's not like so conclusive, so you just need more evidence.
Yeah.
And ultimately, what you need is evidence in humans. There's definitely something to it. As you see mutants with more follistatin, like mice, they're like, Schwarzenegger mice, like super muscular, right? You'd see even kids get born with more follistatin gene, so they're also like super muscular kids. There's something to it, but we'll see.
Yeah.
And also there's the efficacy part of like, does the plasmid actually deliver enough genetic material that gets expressed enough to actually make a difference? So TBD. There's some evidence showing yes, but it's not yet super conclusive in my opinion. Yeah. That's the point. We just need to do more of this and faster and with not so much bureaucracy that requires sometimes just irrational amount of bureaucracy and testing things that are not necessarily smart to do. Like it's just, and so you have the harm of inaction, the millions of people that die waiting for medicine because you're going through the bureaucratic process slowly. When you think about the speed limit, right? If we had the speed limit at 4 miles an hour, nobody would die probably, right? But we accept a higher speed limit because actually, if we couldn't get to the hospital on time, we couldn't get food into cities, more people would die, right?
Yeah.
It's just, you got to find the balance always, the net benefit harm ratio. And so the same with regulation. You want to make sure you're safe, eliminate all the irrational things, right? You also don't want snake oil, but requiring efficacy trials that go through a monopolistic, paternalistic regulator is not the way, in my opinion. We must empower people to create certificatory agencies like Consumer Reports, .org, right, where they go and put a stamp of approval on like this car or this other car. And yeah, most people are not mechanics, they don't understand how cars work, but they rely on other groups to sort of review and say, is this car good or not? And
I think one thing that will change minds here is to get the real slam dunk to use this method of medical tourism or accelerating science or whatever you want to call it, and get a really, really good result.
Have that have that Chat GPT moment or like GLP-1 moment, right? Where with Ozempic, we saw like Novo Nordisk, this company in Norway, made more money than the GDP of the country, right? And people are like, whoa, okay, so there's something to this. And of course, it's so popular because people have been wanting to lose weight for a long time, and now there's like sort of a magic pill, right? Like, it's, of course, far from magic pill, but it's getting improved and improved. The thing is, it also reduces cardiovascular risk by 20%. That would be more than 1 million people per year that can be saved from this. And these were discovered in like the 90s. Initially, 80s, some initial discovery, and then in 92, I think, was the first GLP-1 inhibitor. And why did it take so many decades, right? Like decades means tens of millions of people that died meanwhile, because of this delay in Ozempic.
Yeah.
And when we're talking about aging, like it's even bigger, right? There's more people that are aging than people who are obese and struggling with that. So, and of course, we don't want to just reduce cardiovascular risk by 20%. We want to reduce it by close to 100%, right? So, yeah, having drugs that reverse even some aspect of even just cardiovascular disease or Alzheimer's or things like that, it's going to be huge, right? And especially if people can look younger, feel younger, be able to run again, or have their like skin look better, or whatever people care about, this will be huge, right? Just having one success story like that, and especially because we can iterate fast, all the funding needed will flow, all the talent needed will join. Yeah, this will happen with the traditional system as well, but with iterating every few decades, it might not happen in our lifetime, and billions of people will die meanwhile.
It's incredibly frustrating that they carry on as if there was absolutely no need to hurry up.
Yeah, COVID was a crisis, but
Yeah, but it was an infectious disease, Laurence. We don't tolerate infectious diseases.
Yeah, like aging has always been there, heart disease and Alzheimer's and so on. People want to fight them, and cancer and so on. But it doesn't feel like a crisis because it's not new. They've always been there.
Yeah.
I mean, news has to happen fast, and this happens slowly in some sense.
Glacial pace.
Yeah. But I mean, the COVID experience was interesting in many ways. So on the good side, you could see if we really want to do something faster, we can. So that's the good thing. And then there are a lot of disappointing things that could have been a great opportunity to change things faster, to make them faster. But also, there could be an opportunity to see that, wow, look how age plays into the mortality numbers. So the average death was in developed countries was around 80 years old. So almost every COVID death was also a death from aging.
Yeah, it's like all of a sudden there was an age-caused disease. I mean, it was not caused by aging, of course, but aging made it so much worse. It was an incredible risk factor for a bad outcome with COVID. And all of a sudden, it was very, very important to protect people, right? But it's not important to protect them when they don't have COVID. It's so absolutely batshit crazy.
I was actually quite surprised that the world decided to stop and care so much about the elderly. Like, I was like, okay,
Yeah.
So you care. I thought you don't, but if you do, then if we as a society care so much about elderly people, then why don't we invest in aging research to
exactly? All of a sudden, it was. I mean, it was all of these stories about people in elderly homes and how terrible it was, and I mean, like that didn't start with COVID, and it has not stopped with COVID, right? It's just crazy. No, nobody writes about elderly homes anymore.
Yeah.
Okay,
just to add one more thing. I mean, that's why your group, the Jellyfish, the kind of film and art is so important, because obviously here we have a kind of cultural or ideological belief that prevents people from seeing aging as the threat that it really is.
Yeah.
Short answer.
Yeah.
Maybe we can get back to jellyfish. I want to talk about that more, but first, so Viva City, where are you now in your organization of this, and what places are you looking at? Do you have any candidates or?
Yeah, I cannot mention the ones that are in advanced stages,
But you have a map on your web page where you kind of have some dots on the map.
Yeah, but they're broad dots,
that,
so they don't show exactly. They show kind of areas, right? There's a lot of
Maybe you
Caribbean
can talk
focus,
about the
Eastern
areas then.
European,
Yeah.
Eastern European, Caribbean, some Africa, like Eastern or Western Africa, then some South Asian dots there. There's also potential in like native tribe in Canada, a few tribes in the U.S. There's this idea of creating an interstate compact, which is a special jurisdiction basically in the U.S. Trump has been talking about freedom cities. That's just at the federal level, but you can create an interstate compact anytime if you have two states making a deal that is also needs to be approved by Congress. But if you make a deal between an Indian tribe and a state, or two states and an Indian tribe, then you don't need Congress approval anymore usually, as they already have a treaty where, whatever they decide between a state and a tribe, it's up to them. So that means it's much easier to get it through. Still hard. Like the US would be the holy grail, but I'm not holding my breath. But I'm exploring these potential solutions as well, especially with the Freedom Cities initiative being adding a lot more fuel into this movement of creating special jurisdictions. But we'll see.
Is there a bounty for someone who finds the place and persuades the government?
Yeah, so we have a $2 million finder's fee that is recursive. So the person who makes an introduction, it makes it happen, that we find that partnership, that we find that location where we are going to build the physical jurisdiction of Viva City, the main special jurisdiction. We will have locations all over the world, like as I was talking about, like embassies and so on. But the main special jurisdiction, if someone makes that happen for us, like makes an introduction that's key, or someone to a country leader, they get $1 million, and then the person that introduces us to that person as like second degree connection, right, gets 500,000. The person that's third degree, 250,000, and so on. Like it halves every every further degree of separation. So we kind of, anyone can introduce us to someone that might introduce us to someone else. So we try to kind of leverage basically 8 billion people, because there's only 7 degrees of separation in total, right? So hopefully we just reach everyone on Earth and find some way to establish such a zone. There's so many outside the box ideas that I wouldn't have even thought about. So we're exploring things that we didn't necessarily think about. There's seasteading as well, where you go in international waters and you create these steads, you tie them together and all that. It's also interesting.
That idea has been around for a while, but there never has been any great example of it, right? From what I know,
it really gotten traction.
I
think it's a great idea. I think it should get traction. But again, most people don't want to live on water; they want to live on land. So, it's most likely we're gonna have a regular city, regular land. But meanwhile, we're also, as I was saying, creating all these hubs, because we need, like, most people are not gonna just relocate to some random remote location outside, like outside the blue, out of the blue. They need to have touch points, right? Grow local communities. Eventually, like, so you're thinking, okay, at least a building, then you could have a few buildings and a little neighborhood cul-de-sac with like healthy restaurants. And then it becomes like Viva Town, like a Chinatown, but for longevity, where you have more and more people, a district like Art District or Chinatown, right, in every major city, where it's full of people that care about living longer, right? And you could lobby the existing city, because there's things that you don't just do locally. You need, like, regarding pollution, air, water, or even microplastics and so on. You could have a lot of people actually vote as with like coordinate better to vote with this intent, right, of living longer. And so then it becomes more of a thing in the public discussion as well, in local elections, then eventually every country elections, directing more federal funds to aging research instead of each separate disease, and treating the symptoms instead of the root cause of disease. Going to be a lot of exciting things. We want to be tens of millions of people online within the next 2 years. We want to have like 1 million people kind of congregating, coming together in person, and eventually, let's say like 10,000 people within the next few years that live in a special jurisdiction. Then, of course, hundreds of thousands and so on. Ideally, it's going to be a big city, full of innovation. We, of course, want to innovate in medicine, but for that, we might need drone delivery, and we might need, flying cars and all that, and just build amazing living environment where the best people want to come, like the new West, the new frontier, the new Silicon Valley, at least Silicon Valley of longevity.
It's interesting. I like the name Frontier Tower. Where is that prospected?
It's on 6th and Market Street. We are in the final stages of buying the building with so it's a collaboration between Viva City and Berlin House, which is the company that initiated this project. They're focused on like these intercity or like in existing cities, building these hubs, permanent hubs that have a cross-disciplinary aspect. So longevity is a big thing, but bringing communities to have a space for AI, for crypto, for hard tech, biotech, neurotech, arts and music as well, just combining all of that, spaces where people can congregate and co-work, and then of course a lot of cross-pollinating lounges and event spaces and co-living and so on. So that's going to be open soon. I cannot say yet the date, but by the time this comes out, you will be able to put the date in the description.
For Frontier House, interesting. Yeah.
Frontier Tower,
interesting. Yeah. So, I mean, we spoke with James Stroll, who's one of the originals of longevity, of the modern longevity movement, and we talked about this kind of as a counterculture. And I mean, here we're talking about communes in some sense, but in a kind of new way of talking, the way that, the hippies and other countercultural movements in America in the 60s and 70s tried to find their own way outside the system and the man. And here we have this talk about like the man is the big pharma, and we have et cetera, et cetera. There's some similarities here.
Yeah. Monasteries were the first sort of co-living and autonomous zones where like they actually had their own laws, their own tribunals to. It was really interesting, and they could travel in between these monasteries. They were like guilds, so that was like a network state, the original network state, right? And then even generally religions have churches. Those are members clubs, like where people that are like-minded meet and have community and commune, right? So we're just I think longevity, like ultimately, like religions promise you eternal life, right? But based on belief. And so I think it's only fair for the longevity movement to be something that's core to billions of people. Ultimately, it's about life and death, right? And it makes sense to coordinate better, to commune, to talk about these things, because especially when it's small, where everyone around you doesn't think about this, and it seems like, what is going on? Why are you not doing your best to help this movement? Like, so then finding like-minded people is amazing. As you've seen, Patrick, right? You were alone, you thought nobody thinks like you, and then you came to Zuzalu, and then wow.
There's this hippie song, there's a new generation with a new explanation coming to San Francisco.
Yeah.
How do you fund this endeavor? I mean, it's not like if I wanted to start a longevity city here in Sweden, I didn't know where to begin, and I sure as hell wouldn't have any money to invest in it. So how do you fund these things? How does that work?
Luckily, a lot of smart and rich people are also excited about these things. These ideas make sense, you know. So it also makes a lot of like the business model is just unlike anything I've ever seen. So even if you just made a new city, of course, it's hard to make a new city. Let's say you take land somewhere that is under $1 a square foot, very cheap, undeveloped, right? And you bring in a lot of people, and you have the density of Hong Kong and so on. You can have thousands of dollars per square foot. You can have, so it's like upside is like venture scale, thousands, tens of thousands, 100,000x maybe, in some situations. But the downside protection, like it's not like a normal startup where if it fails, it goes to you lose your money. Is you still own the asset, the land, right? And so there's a protection in the downside. So the expected value is just unprecedented. Um, that's on just the real estate and making a new city part. But that is smaller. That's only on the order of 500 billion, maybe a few trillion, right? When we talk about longevity, though, when we create this environment where these innovations can come to life much sooner and even just be done, because as I said, like some things are just blocked because there's no incentive. It's just too expensive and you don't make enough money on the market. Then, so if you create that value of billions of people being rejuvenated, it's you don't have to spend so much on elderly care, Medicare, which is we lose I think about 15% of GDP on this, and so you earn all of that back. Then you also have these people now being more productive, being able to actually bring their wisdom that's compounding over time, right? Imagine Einstein still being alive and von Neumann and so on. So I see an age of hyperabundance being brought from this, right? And then what's the value of these therapies? Well, a lot of this value that's created is from these therapies. So I think all of that, a lot of that is going to flow. So if you capture some upside from that, that is amazing as well. It's many trillions and you know even the quadrillion level eventually. So yeah, it's just unlike anything I've ever seen on that side. Then there is also just the shorter term, as we are this network, this community, we're going to have a token. There's going to be a lot of services provided to people just online, people coming in these hubs, events and so on. There's a subscription component where we want to take care of your health more than your health insurance. Like you pay health insurance, but do they really take care of your health, right? Like it's more sick care, right? When you get sick, you get medicine paid for. Then you have life insurance that doesn't want you to die, because if you die, they have to pay out a lot, but it cannot pay for your medicine to not so that to prevent you from dying. Health insurance pays for your medicine, but if you die, it doesn't care. Like it's okay, great, now we don't have to pay anymore. You should put those together, right? To have the incentive aligned, and disability insurance and pain insurance and so on. Then you have some company that or like a community, you pull this money together. Insurance is like the original way of pulling money together, even before money. Like people would just in a tribe sort of ensure that, hey, if you get hurt, we'll take care of you. If you die, we'll take care of your children. Basically, like health and life insurance, right? So just a community that lives together, even has this network online and takes care of every member by pulling resources together. So it will pay for going to longevity physicians, for even getting needed supplements, for going to a gym, for getting healthy food, for attending these events, going to conferences and so on. Like all this stuff is valuable to you, your health, and to the movement, and all of it kind of flows together. I didn't really talk about the regulation aspect, how it's going to be done better, but one aspect of it is not having a monopolistic government, paternalistic model, but having rather insurance companies. So having liability insurance be a requirement. So companies have this liability of potentially they cause harm, potentially that harm needs to be prevented. First of all, you don't want fraud. You can punish people with regular common law, judges punishing people for lying or and so on, right? But then you don't want to just be reactive. You want to be proactive. So insurance provides a mechanism, an incentive to not lose money in the future. You do your due diligence now. So if an insurance company has the liability of like, oh, if the company that I insure is getting sued because it caused harm, I have to pay out later. So actually, I only insure them if they go through some safety checks. So then you have multiple insurance companies, you have competition. They still have the incentive that they ensure that there's safety with all those medicines, but they don't take too long. They don't make it too expensive because otherwise the competition will win out. So you find that perfect balance of regulation. So all of that liability insurance with this other sort of, as I call it, let's say, I don't know, Viva insurance, Vitality insurance, something relating all the projects I've done, right? Like it makes so much sense that you take care of people, you also regulate companies, and all of this is just a flywheel that ultimately benefits all of us with more health, more longevity, less suffering, less death, less disease.
What about continuity? I mean, of course, in a country like Sweden, it's fairly safe. We have mostly free healthcare. School is free, and so on. Of course, there are the same bad incentives that there are in most modern democracies, but I can be fairly sure that Sweden will remain somewhat the same for the foreseeable future. As sure as I can be of any democratic country be the same for the foreseeable future. What about continuity in a new city? When you think about Vitalia, that was a project and now it's being discontinued and you're starting new cities, you and Niklas both. And can we trust that this will be something that has permanence?
Yeah, I mean, there is permanence already because we didn't give up. Like the mission continues, right? We just have different approaches. And so Viva City is just continuing. What can I say? Like I'm not giving up. The mission is what matters most. It's personal for me. It's the most impactful thing for the world. I do think the world will change a lot because of AI, right? I do hope AI is going to help a lot in solving aging. Now, of course, there's ideas about, AGI is coming soon, so it's going to solve everything. We don't need to work on aging. Well, we don't have proof of that. Also, of course, there's the worries that it can be misaligned, unsafe, and kill all of us, actually, right? So I do actually care generally about if a comet would come towards Earth, I wouldn't work on aging. I would work first on diverting that comet, right? Like whatever. So I'm very aligned with the AI safety community as well. So I want that perfect balance of like make sure that things are safe, but also don't just stop. Actually, we need that innovation because otherwise, aging and the status quo is gonna kill all of us too. There's risks with bioweapons, pandemics, right? Risks with nuclear war, climate change can also, unfortunately, not kill everyone, but like it can fuck up society so much, destabilize society that we don't work on aging. So then that is also a problem, right? So we need to work on many things. All I want is at least 1% of GDP, at least 1 million people working on longevity, and then 1% also working on AI safety and climate change and so on. Like it should be just a few percent of GDP, at least a few percent of our efforts, right? And a few percent of people should work on these things that can, cause immense harm, potentially end the species, and end every individual and cause so much suffering, like aging. So yeah, that's most of my focus on aging.
There's also, if we are close to superintelligence, as some big companies at the forefront of AI are actually talking about now, can a longevity city somehow inform how we're going to live if there are no jobs anymore, no roles to fulfill anymore? Do you see like it could be a future from that perspective as well?
Yeah, so having no jobs anymore is amazing because it means everything is done by automation, and so that we have abundance. We have a post-scarcity world. We don't need to work. We can have anything we want like that, right? So I don't know what people are worried about. Even without super intelligence, to me, it's something like a singularity. We can't even say like an ant cannot think about what we as humans might do to it or so on, right? So it's not even worth talking about, in my opinion. It's such a we don't know what's gonna come from a singularity explosion in intelligence, in machine intelligence. Ideally, we merge and go along with this. The question is when it's going to happen. I'm working on the hedge in case this takes 100 years, right? We need to live longer, 200 years, but I don't think it's going to take much longer. So a lot of times people come up with, oh, what, aren't you going to get bored, or all this stuff? But like, it's a bit irrelevant. What we know now is there's diseases, there's suffering, Alzheimer's, heart disease, all these things are big problems. And I do want to see that future, see that explosion of intelligence. Meanwhile, a lot of jobs can be taken away by AI. For example, driving, right? A third of the US population is somehow a driver, like trucks and cars and all this stuff. So it could be a massive societal upheaval, but I don't see it as a problem because it just creates more abundance, it creates more value. Ideally, that value flows to rise everyone up. And I think it will. It always has. Technology has always improved people's well-being, prosperity, right? We just need more of it. So until we have AGI and eventually superintelligence, humans have a role. That role might just change. And also, we might not need to work a lot of the jobs that are not so great. Why would a human just sit and drive a car when the car can drive itself? Then that human can maybe support, be like emotional support for the elderly, or be creative, make art, or whatever, yeah. And
you mentioned hedging and hedging your bets against fast development of AI.
In case it's slow, we need to work on aging.
Yeah. Do you feel like, I mean, there's some parts of the longevity community that are quite worried about what they call hopium, that we don't have to do anything. We can just wait for AI to fix this problem. Do you feel like that's a real problem?
It's a huge problem. We've lost a lot of people from the longevity space. They went to AI because there's more money in it, right? And I understand, like, people believe maybe that, oh, it's going to be super fast, so we don't need to work on aging. Like, are you willing to bet your life on that, right? Like, I'm not, 100% chance of death from aging is the status quo. And yeah, there is a chance that AI is going to solve it. What if not? What if AI is going to still be blocked by regulation? We still need a jurisdiction where these trials can be made faster. Of course, AI is going to help us come up with the drugs, but if the current democratic big countries have this irrational regulatory paradigm, AI is not going to be able to do much about it, unless, of course, AI can be so powerful that it can lobby and change those governments. And I hope so. But what if not? Right? I'm just working on the hedge, the thing that is less people give less attention to. Right? Yeah. I'm always going to work on the hedge.
I have to say it's really unfortunate if people are not working on this problem, if they think AI is going to solve everything for them. However, I also think that I wouldn't want to be out this development phase that we're in right now. Of course, we have AI safety and it's a little bit scary, but still, I mean, the upside could be very big here. So if someone told me, well, if you want to get people working on aging again, we should stop all AI development. I would be like, no. Wait a minute. We can't do that, right? I do think it's also dangerous to think that AI is not going to help us or that it's somehow slowing the development of this problem.
I like Vitalik Buterin's framing of DAC. So there was always this debate of, there was like EA, effective altruism, and they started worrying more and more about AI. And then a reactionary movement called EAC came up. They thought, oh, EA wants to just, he's like against progress and technological progress and so on. No, like EA was, from what I understand, was kind of saying, we want technological progress in general, but like, okay, let's be careful about AI. Maybe some of them, I think some of them were a bit crazy, like, oh, let's have a world government regulating everything and stopping AI and like, go to war for it and all that stuff. And like, okay, maybe it's a bit out there. Hard to know what's best, but EAC was like, okay, these guys are crazy. We need to accelerate. Effective acceleration is as a reaction. And then Vitalik has this framing of like DAC, defensive, democratic, decentralized acceleration. So, there are dangers behind. Like we can't go behind or stay put because there's a bear following us, like trying to kill, like aging, for example. And generally, we need more progress. We need to go forward. But we have two paths. One is like, dystopia, where AI kills all of us. Actually, three paths. Like there's a few. So AI kills all of us and so on. And then there's two where we have a world government that's like dystopian and stopping everything. So AI doesn't kill us, but also dystopian. And then a way in which we're just balancing. Everything is about balance, right? There's this idea of like, okay, you have a democratic way, defensive way to make sure that things are safe, but you still progress. You still run away from the bear, but towards utopia or something like that. By the way, regarding balance, there is this amazing essay by Scott Alexander called On Balance that I recommend.
He has written many amazing essays.
Yes. It's here as well, and it's great.
The longevity house that you are in now, what's a longevity house and when did that start?
Probably the idea came up during Vitalia. Zoe, Isabel Senon, and Rob Shequian started it here in San Francisco. It's just a place where people that are in the longevity space live together. We have events as well. It's more focused on the ones that are working on actual biotech and human enhancement, bioaccelerationism in general. And there are many such initiatives coming up all over the world. It's good to start with at least a house with a few rooms, and then have more bigger spaces like the 16-story tower, which of course cannot be filled with just people that are in longevity because there's so few of us. But it can be that people that work in AI and work in crypto and arts and music and so on, all of us might care about living longer and like somehow find cross-pollination, collaboration. I think that's where most innovation comes from, when you're not just in one field, you're kind of cross-pollinating. And that's how Viva City works as well. We have the crypto component, the AI component, and so on. Of course, crypto is very important for governing the city. It's also censorship resistant, just in case big pharma and so on might want to stop bank accounts and so on. Like, I can't stop crypto. We can always govern ourselves. It's not just about capital, it's about being able to coordinate. As you might have seen, things have been shut down, like Discord server of this or that community, or this Telegram or that thing. You just need some cooperation mechanisms that are censorship resistant. And then AI is, of course, a no-brainer for biology generally, and things that you can't even imagine right now that might help our field.
Do you feel like you're changing the world?
I am trying to. Not sure if it's effective. I sometimes wonder, is it the net negative? It's hard to know, right? But just doing my best to nudge things in a better way. We're too small right now. We need to be much bigger.
Yeah. Yeah, Patrick, do you want to say something?
Well, I mean, maybe we should ask our standard question about books or perhaps movies too.
Yeah, we should. We didn't talk about that. Maybe we should just, Laurence. We talked a little bit about jellyfish. Can we say something more about that? Jellyfish is a DAO.
Yeah, JellyfishDAO.
JellyfishDAO,
We're
and
also
you're
going to have a
trying
token
to.
soon.
So you're trying to create culture, I guess, around longevity, and not the dystopian version of longevity that we're always served, but trying to frame it in a more positive light and try to tell stories about that it's actually a good thing that we want to continue living.
Yeah, fiction, stories, movies inspire people about what could be, and then the scientists and engineers make that thing happen. I think that's the order of operations. We just don't have good stories with movies and so on showing a world without aging. So of course our world, people are now working on this, really. It's just such a small field. We need to change that.
Do you feel that this has to do with the way storytelling is usually done, that you need some kind of conflict?
Nope.
No?
You can create a conflict about anything. Like you can have like one of my ideas, for example, is that you show a world without aging. Oh, it's good, and then a virus comes that terrorists try to introduce a virus that would bring back aging because they think it was better for all these reasons, right? And you have maybe a protagonist that also thinks similarly, and like over time, just going through the journey, discovers actually, oh, overpopulation is, I mean, obviously it's not a problem, but I don't know, whatever arguments they might have, so you don't say it rationally, you kind of go through a hero's journey to understand why those arguments are not good, and you also inspire that this can be done through the movie, and we want it to be done, and the world could be amazing. So you make the drama about something else, or you can also make. So the reason we're doing the hub in LA, starting with a pop-up gathering as well, is also because we want to bring in Hollywood, right? Any movie could simply, instead of putting some kind of negative spin to it, also make it a positive spin. And the movie is about something else, or just in the background, people are just not aging, and that can be starting to be normalized, and maybe they can touch on how, because maybe people think, okay, oh, people are not aging, but like, don't they have overpopulation or something? They can touch on that. I mean, there's so many movies where they just expand into the universe and have abundance and all that. But some of them, they still age, and like, why? Right? They just small changes. Like if we inspire people to be part of our community and they understand, oh, this is the way to go, you can just scale this this way of thinking.
Is it mostly movies you're thinking about?
With JellyfishDAO, yeah, the focus is on movies, but we do want to do other media. Like music can be also a lot easier. Like, for example, Grimes came to Zuzalu 2, wants to live forever. She can easily add some. So in a movie, if you make it about longevity, it costs a lot. It's like a biotech company as well. It's risky. You put in hundreds of millions and it might work out, might not. With the music, they already need to put out something and distribute it. I might as well change the lyrics a little bit to show it, so inspire people about living longer, right? Over time, like you're not going to make necessarily one song that is going to change everything. You slowly add those ideas in a positive light. So I'm bullish on music as well, because you just need to convince one artist. You don't need the producers, the directors, everyone to be like understanding of this paradigm.
What about the written word? What about literature?
Literature too, video games too. I don't know how much people read anymore, right? Like that's the problem with.
Tell us about it.
Yeah. That's right.
Have you seen Longevity Hackers? I met the
Yeah, we
producer
actually funded
Ruben.
it. We're the main funder of that documentary as well. It's great.
Oh, that was Jellyfish?
No, sorry, VitaDAO. When
Oh,
I say
okay.
we,
Okay.
I'm involved in many projects. So,
Yeah. Okay.
and we're
All
all
right.
friends and collaborating anyway. So,
Yeah.
Excellent. He came by Malmö, actually. Ruben, the guy who produced it.
Yeah. Great.
Sweden. Excellent. So, what are some books or films that have inspired you and that you would like to recommend?
Yeah, so regarding books, I would say David Deutsch, The Beginning of Infinity. David Deutsch generally.
Sorry, I'm laughing now. I think this is the third. I think we've done this with 4 guests so far, and I think no, Jamie Justice didn't. She didn't mention anything about David Deutsch. But I think everyone else has talked about David Deutsch. It
So
says
important to
something
be better
about
at science.
the guests we are inviting. Okay, sorry, Laurence. Yeah, so David
we should be
Deutsch.
more rigorous about how we develop theories and get closer to truth. So that's why I love his writing. Then Harry Potter and the Methods of Rationality. It's not about Harry Potter. It's not like so. It's fan fiction. It's not an official Harry Potter book. It actually is also one of the few books that talks about aging as a problem and how we should fix it. Like Eliezer Rutkowski is very aligned, or was very aligned with this. Now he doesn't care anymore about longevity because he's thinking 95% probability AI is going to kill us very soon. So,
I think it's more like 99.9%.
in his mind, you mean, or in?
Yeah. I think if he said 95%, it would be news. I think 95. Then he has
He said
lowered.
95 at some point. Maybe now it's yeah. He's pretty. The point is he's like very convinced.
Yeah, I know.
So that's his focus, right? But he used to be a big advocate for curing aging. And then The Great CEO Within is a book that I recommend for the entrepreneurs. If you're not
Who
an
wrote that?
entrepreneur, then maybe I don't remember, Alex something. It's a collaboration. So he's a coach, and then there's the guy from Clearbit that I think helped as well. Or no, I don't know.
We'll put it in the show notes.
So he's a great CEO coach. That worked. I think he also with Sam Altman. It's more of an instruction manual. It's
you're Googling now.
Yeah, I was Googling his name, Alex McCaw and Matt Mockery, and a third one I didn't know, Misha Talavera. Okay. So yeah, if you're building a company, they have very short chapters. Like if you wonder about fundraising or recruiting or so on, you can just go to that chapter, and it's very short. Like such a good collection of advice. If you're not an entrepreneur, maybe then What's Our Problem by Tim Urban, one of my favorite authors, also very much into longevity, and he's been, he spoke at Vitalia and he's part of the community.
He's also going to be at Vitalist Bay.
Yes.
I think actually we're going to air this episode right around when Vitalist Bay starts, which is in the beginning of April.
Nice. When it comes to what's the movies, the other question, right? I just inspired growing up by things like Star Wars and Star Trek and all these futuristic things. Right? They would show a future with technology, with abundance, with they would of course introduce some scarcity for no reason. So they're not perfect, but some aspects of it would inspire me, right? That's why I think I'm so much into this techno futurist stuff.
Laurence, thank you so much for talking with us today. It's so exciting, everything that you do with decentralized science and building longevity communities and longevity cities. It's going to be so inspiring and exciting to follow you on your journey here. And hopefully I will live in a longevity city someday.
I would love to have you. Thank you very much for having me. Great conversation.